She's just a warehouse worker, my dad laughed in front of his partners. Minutes later, my face appeared on TV, with a $1.2 billion announcement. The business dinner was at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse in downtown Chicago. Dad's quarterly networking event where he gathered his corporate cronies and business associates. He'd insisted I come, though he'd made it crystal clear I was only invited because Mom had guilt him into it. It'll be good for you to meet successful people, he'd said on the phone. Maybe someone can help you find a real career. I was 27 years old. I'd been running my logistics software company for 5 years. But to Dad, if you didn't work in a corner office wearing a designer suit, you weren't successful. I showed up in dark jeans, a black turtleneck, and boots. Practical. Comfortable. The kind of outfit I wore when visiting distribution centers or meeting with operations managers. Dad's face tightened when he saw me at the entrance. That's what you're wearing, Kathleen? This is a professional dinner. I'm dressed fine. You look like you're about to unload delivery trucks. Sometimes I do unload trucks when I need to understand the workflow. He closed his eyes briefly, like he was praying for patience. Please tell me you're not going to talk about your warehouse job tonight. It's not a warehouse job. It's a software company that optimizes logistics operations. Right. Your company. He made air quotes with his fingers. Just try not to embarrass me, okay? We walked into the private dining room where 8 people were already seated. Dad's usual crowd, corporate executives, finance guys, a few attorneys. My sister Danielle was there too, 29 and working as a marketing director at a luxury fashion brand. She was in full corporate armor, designer suit, expensive jewelry, perfect makeup. She looked me up and down and smirked. Casual Friday came early this week. It's Tuesday. Exactly my point. Dad started making introductions as we took our seats. This is my youngest daughter, Kathleen. She's between opportunities right now. I run a logistics software company, I corrected quietly. She works at warehouses, Dad clarified to the table, his tone apologetic. We are hoping she'll transition to something more professional soon. One of his friends, a man in his 50s named William, smiled politely. What kind of work do you do at the warehouses? I don't work at warehouses. I develop software that optimizes supply chain operations. We work with warehouses, distribution centers, fulfillment operations. She helps them organize inventory, Dad interrupted. It's entry-level logistics work. I could have corrected him. Explained that my company had 134 employees, $360 million in annual revenue, and clients that included 3 of the 5 largest retailers in North America. But I'd learned over 5 years that Dad didn't want to hear it. He decided when I dropped out of Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management that I was a failure. Nothing I said would change his mind. Danielle leaned over to whisper loudly to the woman next to her. She's been doing this warehouse thing for years. Mom and Dad are mortified. I can hear you, I said calmly. Good. Maybe you'll finally get the hint. The waiters brought appetizers. The conversation shifted to stocks, real estate, business deals. I ate my Caesar salad quietly, checking my phone periodically for updates from my CTO about the system deployment we were managing tonight. Kathleen, phone away, Dad said sharply. It's rude. I'm working. You're at a dinner. I'm monitoring a major deployment for a client. We're implementing new software across 52 distribution centers tonight. William raised an eyebrow. 52 centers? That's a significant operation. It's the 3rd largest retailer in the country. The deployment has to be coordinated precisely, or it could cost them millions in lost productivity. Kathleen has an active imagination, Danielle said with a laugh. She's been claiming to run this huge company for years, but she works out of her apartment and drives a Civic. I work out of an office in the West Loop. 15,000 square feet. And I drive a Civic because it's reliable. Sure you do, Danielle said, just like you manage teams and consult with Fortune 500 companies. I set down my fork carefully. Why would I lie about that? Because you're embarrassed about your actual job. One of the attorneys spoke up. What's the name of your company, Kathleen? Streamline Systems. He pulled out his phone, typed briefly, then stopped. His eyebrows rose. The streamlined systems? The logistics optimization platform? Yes. My firm represented one of your competitors in an acquisition last year. They were bought specifically because they couldn't compete with your technology. He looked at Dad. Your daughter founded Streamline. Dad's smile was frozen. Kathleen's been working on some software project. Streamline did $360 million in revenue last year, the attorney continued, still scrolling on his phone. They're the leading platform for warehouse automation and supply chain optimization. Kathleen, you're the founder. Founder and CEO. The table had gone completely silent. Danielle was staring at me. That's not, you don't. I started it 5 years ago, I said calmly. We began with small distribution centers, proved the ROI, then scaled to larger operations. We now work with 20 of the 50 largest retailers in North America. Dad's friend William was on his phone now too. There's an article here from Supply Chain Management Review. It says Streamline has revolutionized logistics software. He looked up at me. It says the CEO is Kathleen Porter. That's you. Yes. But you work in warehouses, Dad said weakly. I visit warehouses to understand operations firsthand. I also spend time in our office managing a team of 134 people, software engineers, data scientists, operations specialists, sales team, customer success. 134 employees. William interrupted. Kathleen, what's your company valued at? I hesitated. The valuation wasn't public yet. We were in the middle of Series C negotiations, and the numbers were under NDA. I can't disclose that right now, but yes, there is a valuation. We've raised institutional funding. How much funding? Series A was $15 million from Benchmark Capital. Series B was $52 million from Andreessen Horowitz. Series C is closing next month. The attorney was scrolling rapidly. Andreessen Horowitz invested in you? Kathleen, they're one of the top VC firms in the world. They backed Facebook, Twitter, Airbnb. I know who they are. They did extensive due diligence before investing, I added. Danielle's face had gone pale. You raised $52 million. That was Series B. Series C is significantly larger. How much larger? William asked. I can't say. It's not public yet. Dad was still frozen, staring at me like I'd sprouted wings. Kathleen, if this is true, why didn't you tell us? I tried. For 5 years. Every time I explained what I was building, you called it a hobby or a phase. You told your friends I was working entry-level warehouse jobs. You said I was between opportunities. But you never showed us proof. You never asked to see proof. You saw that I visited warehouses and drove a Civic and decided I was failing. You never once asked to visit the office, meet my team, or review the financial statements. Because you were always so secretive. Because every time I mentioned Streamline, someone made a joke about it. You called it my warehouse thing and changed the subject. You told me to get a real job. Why would I keep trying to prove myself to people who'd already decided I was unsuccessful? The TV mounted in the corner of the private dining room had been playing CNBC on mute. Suddenly, someone turned up the volume. And now we go to our exclusive interview with one of tech's most exciting young CEOs, the anchor was saying. I glanced up at the screen and my stomach dropped. It was me. The interview had been filmed 3 weeks ago in our West Loop office. CNBC had done a profile on enterprise software companies, and they'd wanted to feature Streamline. I'd agreed to a 20-minute interview, assuming it would air during off hours or online only. But here it was, prime time, on the TV in the room where my family was currently processing the revelation that I wasn't actually a warehouse worker. Meet Kathleen Porter, the anchor continued, CEO and founder of Streamline Systems, the logistics software company that's transforming supply chain operations across North America. The screen cut to me in our office, standing in front of our operations center where real-time data from hundreds of warehouses displayed on massive monitors. We started Streamline because traditional warehouse management systems weren't keeping pace with modern logistics demands, my recorded self was saying. E-commerce had exploded, but the software running distribution centers was still designed for the pre-internet era. We saw an opportunity to completely reimagine how inventory flows through supply chains. The CNBC interviewer asked about our growth. The camera panned across our office. Software engineers at standing desks, data scientists reviewing algorithms, operations managers on calls with clients. We've grown from 2 people in a co-working space to 134 employees across 3 offices, I said in the interview. Our software now manages over $14 billion in annual inventory flow for our clients. $14 billion. Dad whispered at our table. On screen, the interviewer was asking about funding. You've raised significant venture capital from top-tier firms. Can you talk about your latest round? My recorded self smiled. We are currently closing our Series C round. We can't disclose the exact amount yet, but it's the largest logistics software funding round of the year. It values Streamline at just over $1.4 billion. The table erupted. Billion. Danielle's voice cracked. Did she say billion? On screen, the interview continued. At 27, you're one of the youngest founders to reach unicorn status. That's $1 billion valuation for our viewers. What's next for Streamline? We're expanding internationally. We have pilots running in the UK and Australia. We are also developing AI-powered predictive analytics that will allow warehouses to anticipate demand shifts weeks in advance. The goal is to eliminate inefficiency entirely from supply chains. The interviewer leaned forward. Your company is now worth $1.4 billion. You own 65% of the shares. That makes your net worth roughly $910 million. How does it feel to be approaching billionaire status at 27? I watched my own face on screen, calm, professional, slightly uncomfortable with the wealth question. The valuation is exciting because it means we can invest in technology and expand our team. The personal wealth aspect is secondary to the mission. We are trying to solve real problems for companies that move physical goods. Every percentage point of efficiency we add to their operations means lower costs for consumers and less waste in the system. The interview concluded with footage of one of our client warehouses, automated systems, optimized workflows, our software managing everything seamlessly. Kathleen Porter of Streamline Systems, the anchor said as the segment ended. One of tech's rising stars, proving that the future of innovation isn't just in social media and consumer apps, it's in the unglamorous but essential work of moving products efficiently. The TV was muted again. Nobody at our table spoke. William broke the silence first. Kathleen, did that interview just say you're worth $910 million? On paper. Until the Series C closes and the valuation is official. You're almost a billionaire, the attorney said slowly. At 27. The company is valued at over $1 billion. I own 65%. So yes, my stake is worth roughly that amount. Dad was still staring at the now muted TV. That was you on CNBC. Talking about your billion-dollar company. Yes. And we had no idea. I tried to tell you. Danielle found her voice, though it shook. You let us think you were working in warehouses. I do work in warehouses. I spend at least 1 day a week in client facilities understanding their operations. But I also run a technology company with 134 employees and $360 million in annual revenue. Both things are true. But you never corrected us. I did. Constantly. You didn't want to hear it. William was scrolling on his phone again. Kathleen, there are dozens of articles about you. TechCrunch, Wall Street Journal, Forbes. They're calling you one of the most successful young founders in enterprise software. I'm aware. Forbes has you on their 30 under 30 list for enterprise technology. You won Logistics CEO of the Year last month. You've been a keynote speaker at 3 major industry conferences this year alone. Dad's face had gone from white to red. Why didn't you tell me any of this? I did, Dad. Christmas, I continued. I mentioned the Forbes list. You said it must be for a different Kathleen Porter, because your daughter worked in warehouses. At Thanksgiving, I talked about the conference keynote. You said it was probably a small regional event. At Mom's birthday, I mentioned we'd raised Series B funding. You changed the subject to Danielle's promotion. That's not. He stopped. Did I really? Every time. For 5 years. Danielle was reading from her own phone now, her face getting paler. There's an article here from Fortune. Kathleen Porter, the warehouse worker who built $1 billion software empire. It says you spent a year working in distribution centers before founding Streamline. You actually did work in warehouses. I did. I needed to understand the problems firsthand before I could build software to solve them. I worked night shifts at 3 different warehouses, took detailed notes on every inefficiency, interviewed hundreds of workers about their challenges. That's actually brilliant, William said slowly. Most tech founders never leave their offices. You went directly to the source. It seemed obvious to me. How could I build better software without understanding the actual work? The attorney was shaking his head in apparent awe. Kathleen, do you know how rare this is? A 27-year-old building a profitable, high-growth enterprise software company in an unglamorous industry. Most founders your age are burning through VC money, trying to build the next social media app. You've built something that actually generates massive revenue. Logistics software isn't glamorous, but it's essential. Every product people buy online passes through systems like ours. Dad's phone started ringing. He glanced at it, then looked at me with a strange expression. That's Lawrence Mitchell. He's on the board at Kellogg. The school I'd dropped out of. He probably saw the CNBC interview. Dad answered the call. Lawrence. Hello. Yes, that was my daughter. Yes, Streamline Systems. No, I didn't realize the scale either. He listened for a moment, his face getting redder. She what? A major donation? How much? He went silent. 8 figures? For the entrepreneurship program. He looked at me. When did you? Last year, I said quietly. They asked if I'd contribute to the new entrepreneurship center. I wrote a check for $1.5 million. Dad covered the phone. You donated $1.5 million to Northwestern. They're building a center to help students who want to start companies instead of following traditional paths. It seemed important. He went back to the phone call. Yes, Lawrence. I'm very proud. Yes, we should definitely talk about having her speak to students. I'll check with her and get back to you. He hung up and stared at me. The Dean of Kellogg wants you to give the keynote at their graduation ceremony next spring. I know. They reached out last month. I haven't decided yet. Danielle set down her phone. How is this possible? How did you build $1 billion company in 5 years without any of us noticing? You weren't paying attention. You decided I was a failure because I dropped out of business school and got my hands dirty in warehouses. Nothing I said could change your minds because you'd already written the story about who I was. But if we'd known, Danielle said quietly, would it have changed anything? Would you have treated me differently if I'd shown you the Forbes list or the funding announcements or the client roster? Or would you have found other reasons to dismiss it until some external authority like CNBC confirmed I was legitimate? Silence. I think, William said carefully, they would have dismissed it. People usually do when success doesn't look the way they expect it to. Dad's hands were shaking slightly. Kathleen, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I completely misjudged everything. I thought you were wasting your potential. I know. If I'd known you were building this. You should have believed me when I told you. You shouldn't have needed CNBC to confirm it. You're right. You're absolutely right. He looked around the table at his business friends, all of whom were now looking at me with respect and fascination. Everyone, I need to apologize. I've been telling you all for years that my daughter was struggling, working dead-end jobs, refusing to get serious about her career. I was completely wrong. Kathleen is apparently more successful than everyone at this table combined. Dad, it's not a competition. No, but it's important. I need to own this. He turned back to me. I'm proud of you. Not because CNBC interviewed you or because you're worth $900 million. I'm proud because you saw a problem, figured out how to solve it, and built something meaningful. And I'm ashamed that I didn't see it until it was on national television. Danielle spoke up quietly. I'm sorry too, Kathleen. I've been horrible, calling your work a hobby, mocking you at family dinners, telling people you were unemployed when you couldn't make events. I was jealous of the attention you were getting, even though I thought you were failing. Now I realize you were actually succeeding beyond anything I'd ever accomplish. Danny, you're doing great in your career. I'm a marketing director making $190,000 a year. You're about to be a billionaire. There's no comparison. Different paths. Different definitions of success. William's phone buzzed. He looked at it and laughed. Kathleen, I just got a text from the CEO of my company. He saw the CNBC interview. He wants to know if you're accepting new clients. He says their logistics operations are a disaster, and he'll pay whatever it takes to work with Streamline. Tell him to have his operations team reach out through our website. We evaluate every potential client carefully to make sure we are a good fit. You're going to make him apply through your website. We have a process. Just because he's the CEO of a Fortune 500 company doesn't mean he gets to skip it. The attorney was grinning now. I like you. You're not impressed by titles or wealth. You just care about the work. That's what matters. My phone buzzed. A text from my CTO, deployment complete. All 52 centers online. 0 errors. Client is ecstatic. This is going in the case studies. I smiled and typed back. Excellent work. Tell the team they're getting bonuses. This was flawless. Good news. William asked. The deployment I mentioned earlier, it's complete. 52 distribution centers running on our software with 0 downtime. The client will be able to process holiday orders 35% more efficiently this year. That's happening right now? While we're at dinner. The work doesn't stop for dinner. My team's been monitoring the deployment for the past 3 hours. But it's finished now, and they crushed it. Dad was quiet for a moment. Then, can I visit your office sometime? See what you've built. You want to visit? I want to understand what you do. Really understand it. Not from CNBC or Forbes, but from you. I should have asked years ago. Thursday afternoon works, if you're free. I can give you a full tour, introduce you to the team, show you the software in action. I'd like that. Danielle raised her hand tentatively. Can I come too? Sure. I'm sorry I called you embarrassing. You're the opposite of embarrassing. You're incredible. The rest of dinner was surreal. Dad's business friends peppered me with questions about Streamline, venture capital, growth strategies, hiring, technology trends. They treated me like a peer, or more accurately, like someone they wanted to learn from. When dinner ended, Dad walked me to my Civic in the parking garage. That's really your car? He asked. Yes. You could afford anything. A Tesla, a Porsche, whatever you want. I don't need anything else. The Civic is reliable and efficient. It gets me where I need to go. That's very mature for 27. I learned it from watching you, actually. You always taught us not to waste money on status symbols. To value substance over appearance. Remember? He smiled sadly. I taught you that, then spent 5 years judging you for living by it. Yeah. I'm sorry, Kathleen. Really, truly sorry. I know. And I appreciate it. But Dad, the apology doesn't erase 5 years of dismissal. It's going to take time to rebuild trust. I understand. I'll do whatever it takes. I unlocked the Civic. Start by actually visiting the office on Thursday. Learn about what we do. Meet my team. See the work firsthand instead of just reading articles about it. I'll be there. I drove back to my apartment in Lincoln Park, a modest one-bedroom that cost $2,800 a month. I could have afforded a penthouse downtown or a townhouse in the Gold Coast, but this place was close to the office, quiet, and perfectly adequate. The CNBC interview was already generating reactions. My phone was full of messages from investors, clients, potential hires, journalists requesting follow-up interviews. Our marketing director had texted that website traffic was up 420% and would received 63 new client inquiries in 2 hours. But the message that mattered most was from my CTO, The team is celebrating at a bar near the office. You should come. They want to thank you for the bonuses and for building something we are all proud to work on. I smiled and texted back, give me 20 minutes. First round's on me. Because success wasn't about proving people wrong. It was about the people who believed in you all along.